In this case, I'm actually going to record the data in a very systematic way too. So I've got an actual field data sheet that this is the same one we'll use for next week's lab. And of course, you want to indicate always who you are, what plot you're looking at. In this case, I'm doing grassland, woodland, or suburban. This one's one of my suburban plots. Always record the date and the start time. And this is sort of general before you do anything. If you show up on any kind of field job, any kind of field technician job, make sure you're ready with a couple of pencils. You've got something, flat to write on, and you're just in the habit of any time you're collecting data, you're making sure you're recording who you are, what date it is, what plot you're at, all of those sorts of things. That's just, standard data collection protocol. Next, we're actually going to record these data in a really kind of weird way. I've got room here for multiple species and a little table. And it's going to be each one I detect in the different time bands in the first 2 minutes of my count, in the next 2 minutes, or the final 2 minutes for a total 6-minute count. Over here, I've got any other species that aren't really using the plot. Or this might be something you detect that's beyond 100 meters or something like that. There's been, Canada geese flying around making a bunch of racket here this morning. They're likely not to be in the plot, but there's a good chance I'll hear them when I do the count. So I would put Canada goose over here. In this case, the thing that's really interesting and important, and maybe non-intuitive, is that we're going to mark the first time you detect that individual. So let's say we start our count and there's a cardinal behind me singing. I'll put northern cardinal over here, and I'll mark in the first 2 minutes. If that same cardinal is singing from the same place over the entire 6 minutes, I don't mark the middle or the last column. I only want to record for each individual that I detect the first time band in which I detect it. And that's whether it's visual or audio. And what that's going to do is when we amass a lot of data and do some post-hoc analysis, that's not stuff you have to do for this lab. That's just, we just want you to collect the data so that the data can be useful for that. But when that's all said and done, it might be that if you look at all the cardinals detected by all the people, they usually show up in the first couple of minutes. And that means that cardinals just sing very frequently, are very detectable. And maybe some other species, maybe occasionally it'll show up in the first, or sometimes it's in the middle, or sometimes in the third. And those are species that are less detectable. And for us to sort of figure out those patterns of detection is what needs to be determined so we can compare their abundances apples to apples. What we're actually going for with sampling like this is that we can say with confidence that if we have more cardinals on our sheet than we do chickadees, then cardinals are actually more abundant than chickadees, instead of just more detectable. So that's a key part to how we'll record the data, and something that you should internalize for next week's lab.